the back end, ladies and gentlemen, a basement friend, a recurring guest, but we haven't had him on in a while. It's Alec Sulkin. Alec Sulkin, do we have him? Is he through?
I'm here.
I could hear you. Alec, what's going on, man? How are you?
How are you, buddy? I loved coming in on that last little snippet of you breaking down the comedy of the prequels.
Yeah. And you are, if I recall correctly, not a big prequel guy.
Well, here's the thing. I've been thinking about this in advance of our little discussion today, and I'm starting to get this new appreciation for them. I'll tell you why. To me, the prequels are like Kobe.
Oh.
It's like the further away we get from them, the better they get.
Perfectly said.
And also, given the sort of LeBron-ish nature of the newer movies and projects, like they're flashy and they look beautiful and they're big and they make a ton of money. They're really successful, but there's something soulless about them.
Yeah.
So yes, there are definitely chunks of the prequels that I love.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that you were there with the prequels. I thought that you were completely out on them.
I've always been there with the prequels, and and my contention is I do feel like Revenge of the Sith is a better movie than Return of the Jedi.
Oh, wow, that's a hot take for sure. But like, I don't hate it, to be honest. I love Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, that opening sequence in space with the long journey, like it's just cool. And
like
then
the war drums you hear coming in when they go over that shot. That opening is actually like my test subject, my test drive when I get a new TV. I'm like, oh, let me throw on the opening of Revenge of the Sith. This is gonna look awesome.
Great test drive. And I love Grievous.
Oh, Grievous is awesome. I said before, he is the definition of having aura. He steps on screen, he's got aura. Does he do a lot with it? No. But he's got the aura when you see him. It's the Boba Fett type thing, which is, I saw someone tweeting about this. Maybe it's a George Lucas character type where it's like a badass that you caught past his prime. They're like, yeah, he used to be badass. He looks badass, but he's just a little past his prime. I love the sports analogy. The basement is known for usually Clem taking Star Wars or Marvel or anything nerdy and being like, I'll tell you why this is like the 1980 Giants and breaking it down like that. Of course, I want to talk to you about Blue Harvest and the Star Wars Family Guy parodies or episodes. We've talked about them in the past. We talked about them years ago on My Mom's Basement. I want to ask you this to start. Were you more tired of making the Star Wars Family Guy parodies by the time you got to It's a Trap? Or are you more tired of talking about them now? Because I know everyone always wants to ask about them.
Well, that's a great question and an easy answer. We were definitely more tired of doing them.
Okay.
I enjoy talking about them. I think they are so fun and funny to look back on. But I do remember going through that third one. We were all just, we were running on fumes, and I think by the end of that, any idea of doing the prequels was like, well, we can't. We learned our lesson from the last three.
I am curious. I know there's the joke, like the Cleveland show joke for the prequels. Was there ever an urge or like an ask to do more once Disney and everything like came under one umbrella?
No, it's interesting. I would say things actually got way more difficult when we became sort of one company, and that I know that doesn't make sense at all. But I think the advantage when they were separate and it was Lucasfilm and it was George Lucas, that Seth was able to deal with George Lucas directly, and so it was just like a person and a very important person who gave it the thumbs up, and everyone was like, okay, let's do what George says. Now with Disney, it's like, this giant company, and there are a lot of people who want to protect this and protect that, and we can't do this because we have that project in 6 years, and we can't do this. It's like everything is like a third rail that we can't touch right now.
Yeah, and dealing with George directly, like you met George doing this, right?
I did, yeah.
And you got to go to Skywalker Ranch and everything?
Yep.
That's crazy. I mean, as a Star Wars fan, like you said, like nowadays even, there's not like one person other than George you could meet where it's like, you are the guy. You could say like Kathleen Kennedy, I guess, or like John Favreau. But like, obviously, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen now. At that
Yeah.
point, it's just George, and you get to go to Skywalker Ranch and meet with him.
It was awesome. It was so cool. And he was incredibly nice, a little bit, I guess, nerdy. I guess that makes sense. And soft spoken, as we know, with his little squeaky voice. But he was very human. He, I remember when we were all meeting him, of course, Seth MacFarlane was sort of the centerpiece of that. So it's like I'm sort of a couple people over, like leaning in, going, "Yeah, that sounds great, boss." But he was surprisingly candid, just saying aloud, casually in conversation. He was asking us, did we want to watch a Star Wars movie in his special theater there, Lucasfilm Theater? And we were like, of course. He said, well, pick one, and we picked Empire. And he said, yeah, the prequels aren't as good. He just said that. He just like threw it out there. And then I felt like I had to defend him to him. And I'm like, no, Revenge of the Sith is actually about him.
And
But
is
it was
that
just
when you're meeting with him? Is that before Blue Harvest is made, or is that like afterwards to like show him Blue Harvest, or when was that in the process?
It was after it had been made, before it had aired, and we showed it to him. So that was another incredibly cool part of it. It was in that theater I just described. The first thing we did is we all sat down with him and watched Blue Harvest, and it was he was sitting here, Seth was sitting here, and I was sitting next to Seth. And when I tell you, he laughed at everything. He was like such a
Wow.
good sport. He just like from the beginning, from the opening crawl to I remember he let out such a big laugh at the Bush Cheney
The
sticker on
bumper
the back.
sticker. We were just
Yeah,
talking about
and
that the other day. Of that's such a
yeah.
great little joke to kick that off.
Oh my God, it was perfect. I did not write that. I can't remember who did, but somebody added that and it's perfect. But he just let us know right away, like, oh, I'm here to buy. I'm not here to like kind of look down my nose at what you guys are doing. And it was great.
That's so awesome because I'm sure everyone can relate to even the experience of having a video you think is funny that's 30 seconds long, and you're
Yeah,
showing a friend, and 15 seconds into it, you're like, they don't think this is as funny as I
I
did. This, I
know.
need to abort. I need to abort. To watch an entire like hour-long special with him, that is also just making fun of his life's work of
Yeah.
course, coming at it from a fan's perspective. You could tell. But it had to be tense, and the fact that he laughed at everything is amazing. Do you remember? Did he have any like notes, or did he have any specific take that out or put that in?
No, I don't think, not to my memory. I don't know if he ever mentioned anything to Seth, but it felt like it was just all incredibly positive. And, then he signed shit for us, stood for photos with us, and then left us to watch Empire. So it was great. And yeah, we stayed, and they have these little cabins on Lucas Ranch where we all stayed, and we actually went back there. Um, Myself, Seth, and my writing partner at the time, Wellesley, when we were outlining maybe Ted. Yeah, it would make sense that it was Ted because that would have been a couple years after Blue Harvest. So I think that's what it was. Seth was like, "We'll make this our writers' retreat," and thinking it
Yeah.
was very, kind of cool, and it was.
I love that. Multiple people have stories like that. Like I know Kevin Smith, when he was mixing audio for Dogma, went to Skywalker Sound to start doing
Yeah.
it. And I guess he tells the story that he had gotten his now wife pregnant, and they were like, okay, we got to get married. And they were like, can we get married on Skywalker Ranch? And George was like, absolutely not. So one day they just showed up and with a priest and did it. With no permission, they were like, we're just doing it. And it was just the
Why
three
would
of
he
them. It
do
was the
that?
two of them and a priest. Because he was like, I just want to say I got married on Skywalker Ranch.
I don't know why, if George Lucas explicitly said no, that he would do it.
They snuck on, yeah.
Oh my God.
do you
What a rebel.
have do you have a favorite scene or moment or even casting, quote unquote casting, from the Star Wars Family Guy trilogy, even that you could look back on as your favorite?
Well, I mean, I love what we did with Meg, which was make her like a little monster in each one. I mean, that seemed like kind of a fun runner. Um, but it's interesting. My casting in my mind, when Seth first said we were going to do a Family Guy Star Wars thing, why don't you write it? And I remember first thinking of of who I would put where, and I think I had it different. I don't think. I mean, I feel like my casting was significantly different, and then Seth said no, it should be this, the way that it ended up
Yeah.
being. And of course, once again, he was right. But I mean, people loved Herbert as Obi-Wan. I think
Yeah.
that was certainly a very fun scene with their like dirty dancing moment before he has the duel with Vader.
The lightsaber igniting, Herbert having the flaccid saber go up too.
Yeah,
That's, I mean, that's a gift that will live on for decades. I'm still using
yeah,
that gift to this day.
that's that's just good old-fashioned comedy right there.
Just good
There's,
old fashioned dick jokes. Every now
yep,
and then you hit one that hits just right, and it's like, I'm going to use that for the next 15 years.
and that was it. That was the one. Yeah, so I would have to say, Herbert was great. Everyone was great. It was great having Seth Green as Chris, as Luke, just because he is also a huge fan, and so he really captured the whininess
Yes.
of Luke in a funny way. So yeah, I mean, I think and obviously when Seth has his mindset on like Stewie's going to be Darth Vader, like he gave him like some of the best line reads about like getting estimates on the hole that they're going to put in the
Yeah.
side. Yeah, let's get estimates. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Seth really digs into those things, and it was all very good.
It's so good. I remember talking to you about something, something, something Dark Side, and
Yeah.
about the casting specifically, and being like, yeah, we used all of our characters in the first one. So it was like, all right, Yoda is going to be Chris's boss. And it's going to be like stuff like that, where you just have to put them in these slots where you're like, I guess we're going to give a smaller character a pretty big role here. But I kind of
Yeah.
love that about them too. I feel like everything like fits into weirdly the Family Guy Star Wars galaxy in a
Right.
very nice way. Like it all
Yeah.
makes sense as a Family Guy Star Wars galaxy. I think that's part of
Well,
the reason why people were clamoring for more.
yeah, that's probably true. And I mean, obviously, we got pretty lucky just circumstantially that the first three Star Wars movies are mostly white men. And it's like
Yeah.
that's like most of our characters. And I think we find that in our regular shows when we're like, well, Lois can be out with her friends, and we're like, and who are they again? Like we just don't have very many female characters, and so to use the smaller characters, as you pointed out, like Carl, the convenience store clerk, as Yoda. I mean, at the time, it felt like, well, that's all we got, but it was definitely it worked out.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
We've got some people in the chat. Was Vader Stewie the easiest decision of all the Family Guy characters? Basement Meme says. I guess if it was Seth's, if he had that in his mind, maybe, yeah.
yeah. Well, Seth had that in his mind for sure. It's interesting. I think the way I was thinking of it at first was even having like Brian. I'm like in my mind, I'm like, well, obviously Brian and Stewie are 3PO and R2.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
they're,
Yeah.
they're just like bickering with each other. It's got to be those two. And I thought Vader would be Lois's father, Carter, because he's just kind of an evil older guy anyway. But obviously, Stewie in the helmet and
Yeah.
just his performance was totally the right way to go.
You almost made like a third iconic Darth Vader helmet. We've got the original, we've got a Dark Helmet from Spaceballs, and then you've got Stewie, like the football shaped Darth Vader helmet. I feel like that's like very on the money.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, don't
did
forget
Al?
the slightly burnt one from the new movies.
Yeah, oh, true, yeah. Which always I've said for Dave Portnoy loves Darth Vader in general. I've always said he should have that as a prop on his desk. Just an intimidating burnt Darth Vader mask. You walk in, you're like, okay, okay, I know what we're dealing with here.
That's the right one for him to have.
Also, not I guess not Star Wars related, but I just brought Dave up. We just had Dave make an appearance on Family Guy and a full pizza review. We can't talk to you without bringing this up. How
Yeah.
instrumental were you in that cameo? Did you write that?
There's another. I may have suggested it, like because I knew that we were doing the story where Chris and Stewie open a little pop-up pizza shop in their backyard. So I think I suggested maybe Dave Portnoy should come and do a review, and then that became part of the plot of that story. Um, and the funny thing was, a few stoolies on staff for sure, and there's another total masshole who wrote that episode and who actually ended up doing the voice of Dave. So it's an interesting thing because Dave obviously heard about it and then posted like, "Oh, they didn't ask me. It wasn't quite a
Yeah.
slam. It wasn't totally nice," which is right on the money. And by the way, we slam people way worse than that.
Yes.
So,
And that's what I said in my blog about it. I was like, listen, this is like very, very nice slamming in Family
yeah,
Guy standards.
yeah. This was a pillow fight,
Yeah, you
and
could tell it was written by a fan for sure.
yes, totally. And so an interesting thing was, I believe we've uh, done him once, at least once before, and in the previous time, what I found out, because Dave was saying like they didn't ask me to do the voice, and in my mind I was thinking, yeah, we did, but apparently what happened was we had asked him to do the voice the previous time, we had heard back no, and so this time we figured, well, we'll just use our guy again. But it's good to know that he would be interested in doing his own voice, because I'll certainly just reach out to him on Twitter and just
Yes.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Probably the
we're
most like professional way to reach out to Dave is just like send him a tweet or even get him on Ramble. You've got a new app. We could get Dave on Ramble one of these days.
I would love, that's the dream. So yeah, I would love to do that. Very nice
And
of you to mention, and thank you for coming on Ramble.
of course, to plug Ramble really quick, it is a new app that Alec is behind where it's basically group chats in an app. So you could like hop into a group chat, read people's group chats. There's Family Guy writers in it as well, which I find that to be like a very fun part, is like you guys have a little like writers room ramble and everything. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I appreciate you get it. You're a younger person, so I figured you would understand. I
Hello,
just feel
fellow
like
kids. Yeah.
yeah, right. I feel sort of like Daniel Plainview about texts. I'm like, they're a vast untapped resource that only I can control them. But I do feel like you summed it up very well. But if we all could have seen that famous Avengers group chat, that would have been awesome. Like you would have had millions of people, lining up to see that. And I really do feel like this app's usage lines up with Barstool's sort of content very well. It's like if you picture that hilarious mini golf tournament that they do every
Yeah.
year. Like I could see leading up on Ramble, Portnoy calling Minahan, everything in the book, trash talking back and forth. Then they have the hilarious tournament, and then you have the post tournament, yeah, I told you so kind of shit. Not to mention you could have like Portnoy texting his underlings like what to get for this stupid golf
Yes.
tournament. It always looks so weird, like all the frantic nature that goes into putting something like that together. But yeah, I appreciate you mentioning it. I appreciate you being on it, and I'll make my very scared approach to Prez at some point.
Of course.
Uh,
One of the things we're doing on this stream in general is asking a lot of our guests what the first exposure to Star Wars in their life was. Do you
yeah,
have a story for this?
yeah. On my dad's lap at the first Star Wars.
In
It was,
77, you were in theaters?
yeah, I was 4 years old. So yeah, I believe if it wasn't the first movie I saw, I think it was maybe like the first kind of non-animated movie that I had seen in the theater. I remember sitting on my dad's lap. I remember, that the opening with he was whispering, reading to me in my
Yeah.
in my ear, and then that big spaceship came over, and I was just in. It was awesome, and then my mom was nice enough to take me out of school to take me to the premiere of Return of the Jedi when I was 10.
You had to feel
And
like the
so
coolest kid in school when you get called
yeah,
Alec to the principal's office, early dismissal.
and I was such an asshole too. Like when I came back to school, I'm like, yeah, he is his father. It's confirmed. It's definitely confirmed.
Yeah, because going into Jedi, people thought maybe Darth Vader was just fucking taking one
Yeah.
over on Luke, and he was lying about the whole thing, right?
Right, right. So it was like an unanswered question.
Oh, that's amazing. That is so great. And then, I mean, talking about watching the opening crawl, I feel like the opening crawls are also some of the best parts of the Family Guy parodies, going down to the third one getting brutally honest if we don't want to do this anymore. Were you
Yeah.
writing those ones as well?
Well, yes. So we have a lot of Star Wars fans on staff, and even the people who weren't Star Wars fans actually added hilarious stuff because can you imagine not having seen Star Wars until you're like 40 and then you watch it and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think I remember I definitely took a shot at writing the by myself the crawl for the first one, and I think parts of it were still in there, like about space stuff, and like then this happened. Like I kept it very brief and like minimal, and people kind of added to it. So I remember that being the process for each one, where it was like somebody would get a funny idea, like the funny idea for the third one of like, let's just say what we're feeling, like let's just say
Yeah.
that this is awful torture, and like then having 15 very funny people like adding to that idea. So it became pretty collaborative.
I rewatched the second one last week. Just was looking for something to throw on. I was in the Star Wars mood, and I love the elephant bit in it, where it's like we're gonna spend $58,000 on a dancing elephant that has nothing to do with the plot, and then it runs
Yeah.
past the screen. It's like, see, wasn't that stupid? Like that's such a stupid bit that makes me laugh so hard. I think my favorite joke in all three of them might come from the third one. It might come from It's a Trap, where they're laying out the plans to destroy the Death Star again. And Peter's just like, yeah, that's what's so fucked up is we did this already. And just the
Yeah.
bluntness he has about that. And it's
Yeah.
exactly like if you're showing someone the original trilogy for the first time, I think they
Yeah.
get to that scene in Jedi and they're like, wait, we did, like, this is the exact same scene. We're doing this
Yeah.
again.
We're getting it again. Yeah. One of the things that I don't know why I end up singing it to myself a lot is from the second one that you just watched, the Empire one, where they go back to get Luke and they play the disco, turn the ship
Yeah.
around, Leia knows where Luke is. Like that's always in my head.
That's so good. And when you were actually making them, was it like was there an agreement in place that we're gonna do this? And like if you would have went and screened it to George that day and George was like, I fucking hate it. I don't want that going out. Like was there a plan in place of like this might not go out?
Well,
Or at
that's
that point
interesting.
was it agreed to of like, no, I understand they're doing this and sign off on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm so glad that didn't come up. Even hearing that scenario gives me anxiety. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened in that scenario. Like if we had screened it for him and he had been like, "This is unacceptable. Like you're shitting on my life's work," and left, that would have been a big problem. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I can say with certain because also I know who Seth is, and Seth wouldn't want to do that to
Yeah.
George Lucas if George Lucas felt that way. Like George Lucas is not like Paris Hilton, where it's like, well, who the fuck cares what she thinks? We're telling the joke anyway. So yeah, that I think that probably would have pulled the plug on it, which would have
Yeah.
sucked. But I do believe that they were both so far down a road, and I think George knows how much work goes into making, X piece of entertainment. And I think even if George had a little bit of that in him, I think he would have been too almost embarrassed after
Yeah.
handshaking and saying no problem and I love it, and, so I'm glad it didn't happen.
And maybe the I'm sure the door was cracked open a little bit with all of the Star Wars references in Family Guy before this. I remember seeing
Yes.
some of the behind the scenes stuff on the Blue Harvest DVD talking about that. Like there's so many random jokes throughout the years leading up to that where it was again clear that yes, you're making fun of it, but from such a fan point of view where it's like you have to be a diehard fan to make fun of this basically.
Right. Like only a diehard fan would have noticed this thing to make fun of.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And then
No,
as far as the future of Family Guy, I was curious if you have anything you could share. I remember the last time we did one of these, and I'm not asking for you to share something this breaking news wise, but you told us about Mayor Wild West was joining Quahog for the first
yeah.
time. Is
Yeah.
there anything fun for upcoming Family Guy we could look forward to?
Well, the episodes have been really great recently. Like we've got a lot of stuff coming out. There's going to be for our 450th episode, which I think airs next season. So like, uh, fall of 25, spring of 26, we have our 450th. Um, I can't give away too much about it, but it's a great Stewie and Lois story that we have not seen anything like before. and it was really exciting. It's very well written by Travis Bow, who's one of our best writers. It's going to be one, if you're a Family Guy fan, you'll definitely want to tune in for that one.
All right, I'm stoked for that. I'm very excited for a Stewie Lois. We haven't gotten a Stewie Lois story in a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah, it felt like we'd kind of played out the I want to kill you dynamic.
Yeah.
And Stewie has become much more of like a hilarious gay guy over the years. And
Yes.
and this is kind of like, I don't want to even say it's like a return to form, because it's not. It's not just like I want to kill you. It's much deeper than that, and it's great.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, looking back at some of the early Family Guy episodes, it's funny sometimes and jarring. We've had so many seasons of Stewie as a funny gay guy, as you called him, where you
Yeah.
watch those back and it's, damn you and damn that woman and destroy the world and ray guns and shit like that. You're like, oh, yeah, that's how this started.
Yeah, it's true. And it's great because he still has that in his arsenal when we need
Yeah.
it for a story. Like, he can still have,
Time
he's got,
travel, anything gadget wise, you got it in the bag. Yeah.
yeah. But it's much funnier to play him as a guy who wants to go to Mykonos, every summer. Like, it's just
Much
like,
funnier, agreed. Yes.
yeah.
Alec, thank you so much for joining the stream and chopping it up about Star Wars with me, talking about, again, Blue Harvest, which I'm sure you've talked about 1,000 times, but I really appreciate you making the
I
time.
love talking about it with you. You're a great interviewer. You have great questions, and I love that you're doing this 24-hour thing. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of the day. Celebrate. May the 4th be with you, my friend.
I will be, sir.
Everyone, you could follow along with Alec, of course, on all his social media, but get on Ramble to follow him because that's where he'll be the most. I assume that's where you'll be the most.
Thank you, sir. I'm always watching, like Mike Wazowski.
I love it. There you go. Alec Sulkin, ladies and gentlemen, talking Blue Harvest, talking something Dark Side, talking It's a Trap. They're all on Hulu. So if you want to watch those tonight, that's a great way to celebrate May the 4th. Check out the Family Guy parodies. There we go. What an interview. W. Alec. W for Matt in the chat. Thank you, guys. Great chat, says Ben. Alec's a great guy. I've known Alec for years now. I mean, early on in my Barstool days, obviously I'm a massive, massive Family Guy fan, like one of my favorite shows of all time. So I knew he was already a friend of Barstool from the old rundowns that he had done. And I think I reached out pretty early and was like, hey, I'm a fucking gigantic fan of yours. Can we do My Mom's Basement someday? We've done My Mom's Basement together. We've done movie commentaries together. During COVID, we did a couple movie commentaries. On my channel right now, you could go watch The Karate Kid with a commentary with me, Clem, and Alec Sulkin. You could go back and watch the original trilogy with a commentary from a big group of us, the Lights, Camera, Barstool guys, Clem, Alec Sulkin. We did Raiders of the Lost Ark with Alec Sulkin and David Goodman from Family Guy, who knows more about Indy. He's forgotten more about Indy than I'll ever know. So go check those out. Great time talking.